precautionary approach. We need to talk about it more. It's about data, types of information, making decisions without needing always all the data, and being more careful and more risk-averse. But like we say, we will use and think about and process a lot of the concepts and theory of yesterday as we start our group work today after lunch, okay, in special groups, okay. Now, also a quick reminder, we have the course code before we start our presentation, so we still have this every day. I'm going to remind you, especially the first one, the phones, yeah, please. We agreed on silent, yeah. So please keep it like that. So we don't really want to be looking at our phones. I know yesterday we did for the timeline, that was great. That was you were Googling, yeah, for the timeline, okay, but that was a specific request, yeah? Okay? Everything else seems to be fine for now. Yeah, go on, please.
Can I use my phone for taking pictures here? Not for you.
You can use it for taking pictures. Of course you can take pictures, but if I see you texting, then I have to follow you. Google, yeah. Yeah, Google Translator. Okay. We are talking about, we want to make sure that we have an understanding in the language that you're comfortable with. Yeah? Okay. And we should start a word list. We could. Now, so today, we said the first one that we're doing is moving towards E-EAFM. What we're going to have now, who's good with this computer? Who knows the laptop? Maybe it went to sleep because we had it open and then it...
Just to get you thinking about the process of evolving towards what's occurred in the United States, starting with there was serious overfishing in many of our fisheries in the 1950s to 1970s. That overfishing was mostly caused by industrialization, where new technologies advanced the ability to overexploit. Larger ships, new types of gear, better ways to navigate, better maps to prevent that overfishing. So in many areas, not just in the United States, most of the world, fisheries have gone through this rapid growth and overexploitation, overfishing. Then in the United States, we came up with a nationwide Fisheries Management Act, and I'll discuss that. And then we'll go through some of these examples, and we'll go through all of these. Now, this is a progression. Each of these are kind of milestones, and the examples I give are some from the Western Pacific, or the Pacific Islands, because the Pacific Islands are more like Southeast Asia. They're very high diversity, warm water, that are when our laws change or when different plans took place, which hopefully will demonstrate to you our improvement and our movement, our evolution toward by this act. I'll probably refer to it as Magnuson-Stevens. That was first established in 1976. And what it did, it did many things, but it created regional fishery management councils. Those are the councils that advise the government, in this case the agency I work for, and many of the resource folks here work for NOAA. And we have to, and I'll show a diagram in a moment, but the councils advise us. And they have a stakeholder process, and they develop fishery management plans. And market management, which is another one of the principles that you'll discuss. So this is just kind of a diagram to show the structure of the fishery management process in the United States. So the federal government, NOAA, our agency, the National Marine Fishery, has the responsibility. There's expert panels, and there's industry, and the public sector through stakeholder engagement, and there's also these advisors. And they present that fishery management plan to NOAA, to the federal government, and they either approve that plan. Are we okay?
Yes.
We usually don't have a volume problem. So we use a couple of examples of fisheries in the United States. And again, the ones we've chosen are for different parts of the Pacific Islands. So this first one is a lobster fishery in Hawaii, in a remote part of Hawaii, in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. That it was all the same. And what they've learned since then is that the population itself was structured. Some areas, they thought it all recruited the same, and what they've learned from science since then is that that's not the case. They also learned that the populations up there are controlled by factors other than fishing alone, like ocean productivity, variability of temperature and productivity and nutrients change in that area, and they were managing the population based only on the stock assessment, and that caused a failure of the fish. And it still has not recovered. So they had, just as this course is, they had ecological objectives, human well-being objectives or socio-economic objectives, and governance objectives. So again, trying to do what you're trying to do here. And again, some things worked and some things didn't, which is why one of those key principles is this adaptive management. 2004, so about a decade ago, is that maximum sustainable yield, MSY, again, which is something that's really come from conventional fisheries management, is often based on maximum sustainable yield. But that is still a very useful tool, but alone it's insufficient. And some of these populations are influenced by things other than just taking of that species or that species or stock of fish. So you have to take in the environment, the environmental change, habitat changes, and other fishes and other parts of the ecosystem are influencing the stock. It's ecosystem plans, but they're also spatial plans. So now there's a Marianas Archipelago fishery managed ecosystem plan. And Americans have the same goals and objectives, but the actual management measures that they put into their plans could be different from Alaska to what's going on in the northeast or the southeast part. So it's very different. And some of the areas they use seasonal closures. So in some of them, like that, in fact, that became a significant safety.
One of E-EAFM.
It's an example of it, yes. I mean, because again, it's an adaptive process. It's the stakeholders on what they do, and again, the stakeholders in Alaska from mistakes in the past. Does that make sense?
From the area where I'm from, I think there's a lot of need for really to go towards this ecosystem models, but it seems to always get stuck in the lack of data. The scientists are really trying to find this link between different species,
Fisheries management as well. In fact, in some cases, for the coral reef fisheries and the tropical fisheries, people always say it's more expensive to do an ecosystem approach than conventional fisheries management. I don't always agree with that, because conventional fisheries management, we have to do a stock assessment of every managed species. In some cases, managing each and every one of the species comprising that system. So it's, I don't think, I think one of the, again, my personal opinion is that people are often afraid of ecosystems. And in reality, no matter what your knowledge base is, you can start this process that you're going through. And over time, you can keep getting better and better. You'll have more, you can better identify what information you need. But you can start doing E-EAFM wherever you are with the information that you have, and just, it's an adaptive process. You just keep getting better and better at doing so. And you'll make mistakes. Everybody will make mistakes. Like the example in the lobster fishery. That was, they thought was a well-managed fishery, but they made mistakes. But they've improved and got better.
Yeah, I was going to maybe add something to that. Because, as Rusty says, there's often this worry you need to know everything. But part of the E-EAFM process is that you're using a lot of stakeholder consultation, and they bring information and knowledge, have experience. Fishers know their catches are declining. They know they have a problem. They want to do something about it.
Any more? Go on, yeah. That's good.
คนแค่กว่าจะเข้าไป
คนเตี้ยสุดจะเข้า
ให้ biodiversity
สูงแล้วเนี่ย
ใช้ใช้ที่เป็น to my opinion more risky
ชาวเข้ามามีส่วนร่วมในการออกประกาศทุกอย่างเนี่ยต้องผ่านการไอเดียจาก
More challenge. So let's have a think then. Okay, so what do we have here? What are you going to do today? We have more. Okay. Thailand specifically, obviously there always will be challenges, but there also are opportunities, yeah? And the reason why we do this exercise is that after this afternoon and for the next few days when you're going to be working in groups, yeah? Do you think there are some that are really more important or than others? Do any need to be explained?
Among the organization or
You mean there's not so much at the moment, so it's a challenge?
yes,
Okay.
how to convince them.
Right, okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Because it's also an opportunity. It can be both, it can also be an opportunity. Okay, this is the discussion. Yeah, this is coming from the different experiences and the different perspectives in the room. Resources. So it's really about
too much budget. How to transform each one.
I'm still not sure what the difficulty. June, can you explain that?
I think the budget, it should be opportunity. If you think that you have several agencies have budget, why don't you think that you can use the budget as the opportunity to implement the EEAFM?
Maybe integrate budget to be the one program is the challenge. Integrate budget.
All right. Okay. So anybody wearing sandals? Anybody wearing sandals? Can you come over here?
Sandal.
Anybody wearing open-toe sandals? Oh, Max. Okay. So where are you?
second step
Okay. Next step. Do you remember what happened? You all agree? Yeah? Identifying issues and threats or prioritizing issues? Yeah. White shoes under here. White shoes over here. Well, some white in your shoes. Some white in your shoes. Step number 3. What happens in step number 3?
develop
Yeah. Can you say it louder?
develop EAFM.
Yeah. You're developing your plan. Now, anybody wearing black shoes? Black shoes over there. Come on. Then we've got a few left over. Anybody with black shoes? Okay, anybody wearing black? Okay, so you're in step 4, you're implementing. Okay? You're implementing, okay? So there's a lot, and there's a lot also to do in implementing. We only focus on, well, there's an element that we focus on as well. So this is the doing. Yeah? Now, the last ones, the mixed group, you're monitoring, you're evaluating, and you're adapting the plan as you go along, because you are step. Okay, right, okay. So we have. Okay, so if I stand here and I ask you, put up your hands, those of you who are doing EFM. Where do you do and implement? Step 4. Step 4, you're implementing. In step 4.
3, 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
Under
3 steps are doing planning. You see, skills, the more you are in a better position to implement, what you originally planned, and then be in a better position, because these people, they can only do their job if you have planning will, or if you planned well. Yeah. Because if you forgot to put a budget for your monitoring, or you forgot to put your midterm evaluation, or you forgot to have some sort of tracking device, or you forgot that actually you need to access data not only from your scientific department or whatever, but have participatory meetings so that you can gather the indigenous data, they will actions. And do you see what needs to happen to be able to then have other things happen? Okay?
But in reality, you don't have to.
Just to clarify, well, in reality, it depends. It depends totally on your organizational structure. Some are the ones at the end of the corridor. So it really depends, yeah? So that's totally SEAFDEC and its partners and its donors. But within your organization, you have special roles, and jobs include these elements as well. And if you are only an M&E officer, you must communicate the connections. But yeah, you're right, it's not always 17.
But I was thinking equally on it adapt.
No.
Adopt it.
Yeah, but it's not to leave you. No. And we're going to do it in our groups. We talk about developing an E-EAFM team that's going to kind of carry it forward. And that team would be some of the initiatives. Any questions just about the cycle for now, the steps we're going to go through? Of course you will have questions, but now do you just understand the main steps? Yes. Good, thank you. Okay, so we can go, actually, we're going to go sit down again, and now we are actually going to divide you up into suggested groups. Thank you.
And we wanted to make a kind of fun group that had a lot of interaction and sharing. So what we've done is tried to make one group that was based around Malaysia and Indonesia. So what we've done is we've got all our friends from Malaysia and Indonesia in group 1, and that's Faisal, Tomimi, Hemalata, Arif and Indri. And we've also asked Mukbis to kind of really focus in that group and help facilitate that as well. The idea being that you maybe have like common language or at least a facility to talk in Bahasa. And also that probably you can try and find a fishery somewhere between Malaysia and Indonesia that you can work on together. It is a kind of mixed language group, so we thought, okay, this is going to be easier to work in English, and we've got some good facilitators with good technical knowledge, but you are coming from a bunch of different countries. And probably this is more suited to perhaps choosing something like a trawl fishery, but something that you're more or less familiar with. So in that group, we've got Isra, Penjan, Lakana, Hung, Efren, Rick, Kompatai, Max, and Angela. It's quite a big group, but we thought that would probably work in terms of language and sharing and knowledge, right? Then we have the two Thai groups. Now, this one, Isra and I had a chat about this, and we thought, okay, because when we looked at your profiles and stuff, we realized some of you have done quite a bit of work, you have experience around Chumpon. So we said, okay, why don't we split into a Chumpon group and a Rayong group, okay? And so in the Rayong group, we have Panitnath, Siripon, Tanut, Ratana, Nagret, Sawitri, and Jenny. She asked to be in that group, by the way. I think she likes gossip, so it's like that's her preference. In the Chumpon group, we have Akanit, Jaria, June, Sumitra, Krit, Yanida, Sarison, and May. Okay? So the idea is that you would be more familiar in that area. Up to you which fishery you choose, but this is just a suggestion, okay? Now, this is the difficult bit. Is everybody happy? Does anyone want to jump? Or are you kind of okay with it? Does everyone say, oh my God, there's no way, I know nothing about Rayong, I must be in the Chumpon?
So what is the next step we need to do? What is the next step?
The next step will be lunch. It's hard. And over lunch, I think you have to think of a logo for your plan. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and we start saying, okay, what is this what does this fishery look like, what species are there, what sort of boats, and
Put it up over. You have to put it over there.
Well, I read it better than.
Well, just tear that off and
yang siapa yang nak lesen. Jadi negeri membawa cadangan itu kepada peringkat pejabat yang akan buat pilihan. Semua pasti. Kalau green artinya nasional. Semua listen nasional.
Next is we have to identify and prioritize. Okay, division.
He mentioned about the crossing season. Normally, crossing season will So they have a new program last year after
แล้วก็มีกิจกรรมอื่นแล้วก็เราจะขับมาทำแล้วก็เป็นคันโดดแล้วจะค่อยประกอบเรื่อยๆเพนมันจะค่อยออกอีกส่งอันนี้ไม่ต้องรีบทำเดี๋ยวจะมีเวลาแต่เย็น
Yes.
The lightning rules are
But so we should just name it the region, no? What's the name of the region?
แม่ลำพูน
The bay or whatever. The
แม่ลำพูน beach.
The title, even if it's in work in progress.
I don't even know how you spell it.
All right, yeah, no. Okay, all right. Okay, great. Okay, we're going to start the next session now. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, good. We are going to continue to.
We're going to continue. Remember, we said that's starting this session now, and then we will have lunch, and then we will continue. Yeah, it's important to start it now.
So in the next, this is very important. We have already divided in 4 groups, and all groups has already defined the area where we are going to work with this E-EAFM plan. So in this session, we will define the startup task and Kokong Chat and Tat province, and also in My Rampung Beach in Rayong. So this is very good. And I think the area is much more complicated than we had in Sabah, because Indonesia has their own area. In Arafura Strait, Malaysia also, and also the Malaysia, Indonesia, Malaysia and the Philippines. To make your preparation, the first is we have to form a startup ERM team and facilitators.
จะเป็นวางนโยบายเซ็นเตอร์เนี่ยมาให้คนเนี้ยอันนี้ก็ต้องเยอะแต่ว่าการที่จะสำเร็จได้มากเลย
We can only enforce if the rule
เรียกกำนันอ่ะมันจะเยอะจริงๆว่า
เราไปก่อนไม่มี
Holders according to their strengths, influences and weaknesses. We're going to ask you to plot relationships. It doesn't, of course it matters who you are, but normally in the planning group there would be some element of DOF, some representative of DOF.
That's what we're doing.
That's fine, that's fine. That's okay.
The environment represented.
That would work. And then we kind of like taking that together, are we going to become...
Oh, you have a name? Yeah, but that's for Thailand. How about for Cambodia?
This group's going to require some
Provincial? Agency.
But we can talk about it. Did you follow my problem I have here?
We're the group that's moving this forward. That's coming up with the idea and saying we're going to engage all the stakeholders.
What I'm arguing is that we'll be...
High-low, high-high, low-low, low-high. Low-low in the Philippines is low-low. Father, gun, father. Father is popular. It's about a son which is taking care of like a son.
ที่จะไปอยู่นอกฝั่งใช่คุมตัวไม่ทันที่จะไปใช่ใช่เราไม่รู้ว่ามันเป็นปัญหาตัวนี้หรือเปล่าใช่ไหมแต่ก็เป็นความคิดของเขาความคิด
Share stuff that the client needs. You need a joint action. You need to work together. And you've agreed to work together.
Have a logo.
Yeah. So our first stage today is to identify who are the stakeholders from your government and as the fisheries administration and the provincial government, the inspectorate of the province, Villa Cantonament, district office, commune, and also the tourism agency over here. So it probably goes more around here.
Yeah.
If we talk about the provincial, that means ministry.
But it's better to talk directly.
The constitution law agreed by actually by Congress.
เราก็เชิญหัวหน้าไม่ได้เชิญทุกคนต้องใครจะใส่ไว้ได้
those trash fish they were not told
ไม่ใช่ถ้าเป็นเฮดออฟฟิชแมนลูกมันต้องมี
ให้ได้เป็นlocal government ไก่บ้านอีนะเหม็นนะ
all government the one who make the problem and should be give the budget
ใคร important เลย
That's what I'm
สำคัญ
ใคร important
สำคัญแต่ว่าไม่มีผลกระทบ
แต่เวลาเราทำอะไรเราก็ไม่ค่อยได้จอยกันก็คือเหมือนเกิดเคสแบบนี้ขึ้นมาเราก็เหมือนว่าเรา
เขาเข้ามารับรู้
เราอาจจะพูดคุยกับเขาถ้าเชิญเข้ามา
Use the influence to support the E-EAFM process. Very strong support. And for the last group with green color, so they have not interested and they have a very little influence. So that's why keep them involved, but with minimal effort. Is everyone clear about this? Using the stakeholder analysis. Actually, it's quite easy to use it. But of course, maybe in practical, there will be some overlap a little bit. We should adjust really exactly about the importance and the influence. It's okay. You can move to this. Apple.
Please come in there.
Can be opposite what they said if you think.
It's tough. Not really tough. But just try to help.
Okay.
The challenge different color.
Participation and also facilitation.
Yes.
Yeah, already here. Can we put that communication too?
Yeah,
Facilitation.
They all remember.
Oh, so.
But this is
People actually use it to facilitate. It's not a word, but no, don't.
ต้องเป็นคนที่มีความรู้ approve right person no knowledge
To understand how to organize and hold stakeholder meetings, and to understand the basic concepts of co-management. You've heard those keys, very important, particularly in the E-EAFM process. So why? It's in the key principles of E-EAFM, engaging the 7 principles. They contribute to increased participation. So if you do engage stakeholders, you're able to achieve 2 of the 7 principles of E-EAFM. You're able to move from conventional, or what you usually do in fisheries management, to a more E-EAFM. Muklis showed you the stakeholder, high influence, low importance, those key stakeholders that you can initially talk to, because you can't talk to everyone at the start. So let's start at A so that we can present it together. Okay? So you can start doing it now. I'll give you your facilitator. Not draw our facilitator. Draw your good facilitator or your...
Always listening.
So make sure to use the marker pen so that we can see it later on. We'll post our artwork.
Cantik.
so they're listening. We make the ear bigger because he's listening.
Listening is
11 years.
Apa? Satu gambar ataupun banyak gambar? Boleh lukis banyak gambar ke satu? Semua happy. Macam nak tunjukkan dia menghulurkan bantuan.
Wait, let me finish.
Oh yeah, still thinking.
Sleepy.
It was a nice idea for you to have a person and then symbols.
Go back to school.
ปิดปาก
มันไม่เหมือนหูอะไร
Bad one.
แล้วมันเหมือนวาดหูยังไง
นั่นแหละ
It's fine.
คิดถึงอาหารเย็นทำโต๊ะเป็นโต๊ะกลางไหม
คิดถึงก็พี่เป้
คิดถึงแบรนด์เกลือเฟย์กาแฟ
Okay, let's talk about them. So you must have big ears. Okay, so big ears is in. What are we talking about? Should have big smile. What's that one? What is this one? He must be active, yeah? Is it like
Active, many different.
Diving, to build something, so they'll work together.
Okay, you have to draw here.
Oh, it must be a lady.
Result, they are
Happy.
both happy.
Okay, so and I had a little man with showing some practical skills. This is good. Skill. Knowledge. Yeah. So should we try and combine all these?
We hear a lot of different thoughts.
This one, they summarize. This one, they have to listen and then summarize.
Oh, so these ears are for listening, yeah? Is that right?
Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one's got where's
Draw sticks.
Kenapa kau buat?
Bombing.
Kan lagi listening over the phone.
If you want to enhance it.
Ni dia nak wajah group facilitator.
Yeah, facilitator. This is a problem.
Yes, a problem.
This car.
Nampak sangat tolong kita ni.
Good listener.
Bom ni kenapa ada bom? Kenapa ada bom ikan? Kenapa ada bom ikan?
Anh đi work shoot nè. Mà đây anh đi work.
Many hands.
Many hats.
many hat.
Many hats.
Bad facilitator side by side, and then the good facilitator also drawing side by side, and then we can.
The real skills. Oh yeah, he had a fishing net, remember? He had a real fishing net.
The bad facilitator can. I will put it up. And then group 2. Okay.
Wow, it's gonna win.
Wrong. Isara made it.
So,
Listening with
group 4, can you give a brief presentation, explanation of the characteristics of the bad facilitator? And what we'll do is that group 3 will explain their drawings also, but do not repeat the characteristics that were already mentioned by group 4, so it will be faster. So okay, so we'll try to combine it, but nobody listen to her. It means that the topic or the subject is not interesting, and also the facilitator have skill to communicate to another body.
And aside of that, it makes people conflict also, and also being at commander. Everything just point out as the bossy and not listen to anyone. Just only talk and listen to himself. And this one shouting. Aside from not listening, also shouting. And also the good facilitator. You can see the facilitator with the big ears. That means he's listening more than talking. He's allowing the other fisheries communities to talk, and he's listening. And you can see the people there around us, they have a smiley face because they are happy communicating with him. And the facilitator is explaining about the bad fisheries management, like bombing and everything.
What do you think? Man or woman? This is I would like to ask you.
Not man and not woman.
This long hair, this short hair.
That's normal.
He was other person. This lady, this man. He had why many had been
to you know, play different roles, so they always have the right side. They're gonna coax out different ideas from people.
Yes, and then he has a big ear to listen everyone, even small sound, big sound. And then many hand to many support. He still smile. And he very clever.
Knowledgeable.
Okay, knowledge.
We have an odd person. One more watermelon. Okay. Oh. Watermelon there. Okay. And then we'll do the apple. Okay. So just pick a group, pick a partner. Pick a partner. Okay, and then the last one is the banana. It's not yeah. If there's a pair that doesn't, that's missing. Start the bell. Excuse me. Okay. So those who are assigned to talk, please raise your hand. Put up your hands. Those who are assigned to. No.
ที่ไหนนะชุมพรก็คือการทำไอ้นี่แหละแคปแบงค์ว่าก่อนที่เราจะทำการคุม
fish, or I don't know what are your, if you have more experience about this, if you could tell me a little bit.
About this person, I know a little bit.
And yes, this is an example for the fishing management in Thailand. Yes. Finish.
Yes?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. First in the Rayong, southern part of Thailand, and the 13th.
Southern part of Thailand also.
So, they separate to our research agency, and then from that our research agency
คนที่ไม่ได้มามันก็ไม่ยอมหรือว่าไม่ได้มาแต่ว่าไม่มีตัวแทนว่าไม่มีตัวแทนคือถือว่าไม่มีตัวแทน
because after 3 months เป็นปีใหม่ของพวกเรา เพราะฉะนั้นเราก็เลยต้องไปเช้ากว่าปกติคือไปถึงประมาณ 6 โมงเช้าเพื่อที่จะ
And then when the information that fishermen got, and then they separated in a group, and then
E-EAFM plans. Yeah? Then Romy gave us a quick overview of all the steps and process of the E-EAFM. That's when we introduced the cycle with the fire in the ground. Yeah, it's module 8. Yeah, and it has 8 little tasks in there. And of those tasks, one of the most important ones is precisely identifying who your stakeholders are. Yeah, and we practiced 2 tools. We looked at matrix to look at the importance and influence
of the stakeholders that you're identifying. And we looked at relationships using a Venn diagram. Yeah, where we, so all of